Welcome back to Second Breakfast and our ongoing Summerween series, celebrating hot weather and horror movies by bringing you the best thoughts, theories, and literary analysis all summer long.
This is part 2 of our Hell House discussion. If you guys didn't hear part 1, it came out yesterday. Please go check that out. We love this movie. We adore this movie. Cam broke down a big theory about why the movie is so goddamn scary, because it is so scary. And so this is our part 2. Cam and I both came in with like these really exciting big ideas, and they didn't make sense together. So we're having them as separate episodes. So that just means more for you, so you're welcome. As we said yesterday, big time spoilers abound in this discussion, so we're going to talk about it. So when I was thinking about this movie, there were a lot of directions I wanted to go. I was like, do I break down why this movie is so scary? Thank God you already did that very well. Or do I talk about found footage? Do I talk about the lore? Do I talk about and I think what I landed on...
You said the Lord.
The Lord. Do I talk about the Lord? What if I did? That would be fun. No, but so what I landed on here was this question that this movie left me with. And we talked about this yesterday. The movie does leave you with a lot of questions. It leaves a lot of things unanswered, and I think that is perfectly in line with the way this story is told through found footage, and I think it would be cheap to give you a big Saw montage expositioning the whole lore of everything. You know, right? We've got a whole Saw episode, go check that out, but from years ago. But the biggest question that I really wanted to answer here was why they can't leave the house. Because every time you watch a haunted house movie, every time you watch a thing where a bunch of people are together in this scary place, you're like, why the fuck don't they leave? After 15 spooky things happen to this caliber, why don't they leave? And the way that this movie sort of clued me into there's a reason why is because one of the characters does try to leave, and that's Tony. So let me remind you, because it's hard with these character names. So Sarah is, of course, the girl. Alex is the guy in charge. He's the one who's running the house. He's the one dating Sarah. Paul is the guy who's normally holding the camera. He's got the curly hair.
The mustache.
He's the mustache guy. Yeah, he's the one who gets whacked first and then, goes crazy. And then
all these Italian names, he is getting whacked
Tony.
now.
Well, it's made by an Italian filmmaker, so it's so funny. And then Tony is one of the other guys. He's the one who's in charge of the security cameras, and he's kind of got the dark brown hair. And then there's Mac, who is credited as Andrew, but his name is Andrew McNamara, so they call him Mac. He's the one with the red hair. And so later on in the movie, in the last third, right before opening night, Tony tries to leave because at this point Paul's already out and they're down in the basement and the heads have moved, and Tony freaks the fuck out, as anyone would. And he's like, you know what, I quit, I'm gonna leave. And then he tries to leave, and then Mac's holding the camera at this point. Mac chases him down and says, hey, you can't leave. And then basically he says do you know? And Tony says, what do you mean? And then the camera cuts, and then it cuts to later on in the day. They're sitting in a field.
Yes.
And so in between these two takes, Mac has told Tony something, and Tony realizes he can't leave. And we never figure out what that is. And so I rewatched this movie probably collectively twice. I went through it and scrubbed through it, was trying to find all these things. Plus, by the way, I should mention, there are 4 or 5 sequels to this movie, and we have not watched those sequels, but I did do some research to see if this question is answered in said sequels. I don't think it is, at least not explicitly. So if you've seen the other movies and you have more, please feel free to add. I would love to watch those sequels at some point.
Me too. And it's the same creative team, which is rare and wonderful in a horror franchise. I
do love that. But so I was like, okay, I don't want to do this whole deep dive theoretical, unraveling if it's just answered in the sequel. I don't think it is. So some online theories have suggested that maybe what's happened is that Alex, unbeknownst to everybody else, has sunk all of their money into this house, and if they don't go forward, they're all going to be bankrupt. I can see that as a theory, but after that level of spooky shit, if I'm Tony, I'm not sticking around. I'm like, you know what? I've experience doing special effects and doing haunted houses. I've been successful in the past. I'm going to find another job somewhere else, and I'm not going to die in the process. I don't think that's a good enough reason for him to stick around.
I didn't look up any of this, just to jump in. I didn't research any of this of theories online or what was in the sequels, but just off the dome, my assumption when that happened in the movie was all of their money, and an irresponsible amount of their money, is wrapped up in this one rental of Hell House, so they can't afford a hotel. They can't do anything. And but more importantly, not just that they can't afford a hotel, but there's that much more pressure on this endeavor that if it doesn't work, they're totally done. That this whole thing will fail. So there's a pressure to stay there, just so they can work around the clock.
Right, sure. And I understand that reasoning. I think that is sound in another kind of movie. But I think because we're in a found footage, because this is pretty grounded, because things feel pretty real, I don't see that working in this world. I don't see Tony and Mac being willing to stick around. I could see Alex pushing because this is his big project. He's so passionate and wrapped up in it, and he's so convinced. And he also seems to know things about the past history of the hotel that he's not revealing. I could see Alex being like, I don't care, we're gonna make it happen, I need to make money. But Tony should have left. And I think there's an extra layer. I think there's something else that Mac tells Tony. I mean, we know there's something else that Mac tells Tony. And I think this is beyond what we do know for certain. I don't think it's about money. I think it's something else. And I've got this theory, but I'm not definitive on it. And I would love to hear your reaction, and you, Cam, and you, the audience, to give me more options or opinions. But so I think what's going on is twofold. I think number one, Alex has made some kind of deal with the devil. Some kind of supernatural thing happening.
That's why I'm on this episode.
But I don't think that's what he told Mac.
Okay.
Again, I don't think this movie has Mac believing that, and I don't think this movie has Mac telling Tony, and then within the same day, Tony accepts it and is fine with it. Like, I don't think this movie is too grounded for a character to believe that immediately.
He's very calm when he's sitting in the field. He's kind of resigned to what's happening, but he doesn't look like he's wrestling with some supernatural revelation.
Right. So I think, like, in part, I think Alex has made a deal with the devil, which we will unpack in a minute. But I think what he told Mac, is that he's sick and dying, and this is his last thing. I was like, what could make Mac go along with this shit and after all of this convince his other friends to stick around and endanger all of their lives? I think Alex lied to Mac and said, I'm sick, I'm gonna die in the next 6 months. This is my last project. I really want you to do this with me.
So it's love. It's loyalty.
Yes.
That's the thing that would make him have a sense of peace with this decision, where he's not fighting it. He can resent the work involved, but he seems to have accepted the situation.
Yes.
Interesting.
Because we learn in the movie from one of the people recounting in the documentary section of the movie, the interviews, that Mac and Alex grew up together. They're childhood best friends. So it makes sense that a secret like this, Alex would tell Mac and only Mac. He doesn't tell his girlfriend because Alex is clearly very insecure and wouldn't want his girlfriend to leave him if she thought he was dying. He doesn't tell his other friends because he's not as close with them, but he tells Mac also because he knows Mac will help him keep everybody loyal and keep everybody there and keep them there to support him, because he cannot run the house without everybody involved.
That seems to be his job. Is to kind of clean up for Alex's decisions. But even the way they argue, there's a level of intimacy and trust that he doesn't even have with Sarah.
Exactly. There are so many moments in the movie that really point to this special connection that Mac and Alex have compared to anybody else. At the beginning of the movie, when they're driving up to the house, before they've even gotten there, Alex and Mac are sitting up front. Alex isn't sitting with Sarah, his girlfriend. Mac is driving, Alex is in the passenger seat, and he's giving Mac really bad directions. And at one point, they pull over and we see Alex and Mac arguing outside the car, having their own conversation. Sarah's kind of making fun of it. And it seems like this is the kind of thing that happens all the time. They're best friends from childhood. They argue all the time, as one does. We don't hear their conversation. I really tried to rewatch it and listen and see, but Sarah and Paul are talking over it, and you just can't make sense of it. I caught a couple words. There's something or somebody that is fucked up, and they're also definitely arguing about the directions. But I think my theory here is that Mac is arguing that Alex not telling anybody else that he's dying is fucked up.
So that's two off-camera important conversations that they have.
Yes, because I'm sure how I imagine this conversation went is they don't know how to get there. They pull over and Mac is like, Alex, what the fuck? I don't know where I'm going. This is insane. This is dangerous. This is stupid. And Alex reminds him, please, this is my last thing. I really want to do this. I put so much money into this. I care so much about making this happen. And then maybe Mac is angry and says, it's really fucked up that you won't tell anybody else. You won't let me tell anybody else this. So I just have to convince our friends to go do this scary, dangerous thing on your behalf, but they don't know why. That's sort of my theory about how that conversation goes. I think it goes beyond just they don't know where they're going. This movie has layers and intention and craft, like we talked about last episode, that go beyond just making a scary movie. So I think that level of storytelling is definitely there. Another thing that happens, this was good, when they get to the house and they first walk in and they're walking around, Somebody says, oh no, Max says this. He says, we aren't going to have time to get the house up and running.
Ooh.
And of course he means by opening night, but I think he also means Alex dying. He says, we're not going to have time. Like, that's something that's, of course, going to be on his mind. And then later on, I think the first night that they spend the night at the hotel after they've gotten the electricity going, Alex is giving this speech. He's toasting everybody. They're sitting around the bar, and he says, it's going to work out. I know it's going to work out. And then we pan over to Mac, and he looks like the saddest person you've ever seen. Because, of course, he knows it's not going to work out because he thinks his friend is dying. So, like, there are all these moments throughout that really tell me that Mac thinks that something bad is going to happen. And, of course, the movie doesn't tell you, but there's no direct evidence about Alex dying or Alex being sick. But that is, like, I think the most grounded, believable excuse that Alex could have given Mac that he would believe and go along with.
I think there's another side to it where, to complement this idea, where Mac seemed mildly annoyed every time Paul sticks the camera in his face. But maybe part of him, because he has enough power where if he wanted to make Paul just do some work and turn off the camera, he could tell him to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe part of the reason that he doesn't is because he's going to want this footage of him and Alex together, and of Alex's last haunted house.
Exactly. And maybe that's why Alex also insisted so hard on getting footage, because he wants this to be remembered too. It's like, that's what makes the most sense to me, because if Alex is... But again, I know Alex has got this other thing going. Like, he's got this deal with the devil, I think, genuinely in the background. But this is the best lie he could tell his friend. That's the only way it works. And so we know that Mac is going along with everything because of this. So, of course, then when Tony tries to leave, I think what happens in that conversation is Mac tells Tony that Alex is dying. And so that's why Tony realizes he can't leave, because he doesn't want to disappoint his dying friend. Like, I think that's the only thing that could keep you going through terrifying supernatural happenings. Like, what else would keep you there?
Right.
Exactly.
Can I ask a follow-up here?
Sure.
Because there are many references in the film to the last haunted house they did that they weren't supposed to talk about.
Queens?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So do you think, because I can't help but apply the Faustus framework here. And traditionally, when Faustus signs the deal with the devil, it's because he's maxed out his theology degree and profession. He's done all the theoretical work he can. And at this point, he just wants to know if this is real. He wants that forbidden supernatural knowledge.
Sure.
But the way they talk about the Queen's job is that it didn't go well.
So here's what I think. I'm glad you brought this up.
I'm trying to wonder the Faustus posture of, does he want to do the one ultimate haunted house because he feels like he's done all the other good ones, or have all the other ones been so bad that he signs his soul away to have one really good one?
Well, here's what I think. So, because I was thinking, okay, I now know what Mac told Tony. I now know why the friends think they have to stay behind, but why actually? What's the real thing going on here? So what is this actual deal with the devil? At first, I was thinking, like, the most obvious answer is that he has made some kind of deal where if he sells his soul or the souls of others, he will have the most successful haunted house ever at this Abaddon Hotel in upstate New York. Sure, that's a good theory. But the more I was rewatching and learning about their past haunted house dealings and more about Queens, I think it's a little bit more backwards than that. Because even if Alex had made this deal of, okay, if I make this deal, I'm going to have this successful house, there'd still be some part of him that would stop, right? If you're like, you know what, maybe I don't need the money that bad because my friend is comatose and my girlfriend's acting weird and there's spooky shit happening in this house. Maybe we just go try somewhere else. Like, again, there would be a level of reality and humanity that I think is present in this movie that would stop Alex from going forward with this house. So I think what's happening is he cannot stop. He physically is like being possessed to do this. He cannot stop. And I think it's because this is the payment, because for a reward he's already gotten. When they talk about Queens was incredibly successful.
Oh, okay.
Like, they have a joke where they say, we don't talk about Queens, which tells me that it was a lot of work and it was really difficult and maybe they had problems, but it did really well. We hear that it was their biggest opening night ever when they had their haunted house in Queens. At the beginning of the movie, Paul asks if this hell house is going to do the same numbers as they got in Queens. We learned that one went really, really well. It seems like they just have moved on because they want to do something else. They want to try something new. They seem to be sort of in a creative tailspin, and maybe they want to try new things and push themselves. Or maybe they figure this is pretty cheap because it's not in the city. A lot of the work has already been done for us. We can save money on props. Like, Alex is really excited about that prospect. So maybe they didn't have to pay much for this. I don't know. But so I think what happens is Alex made this deal a while ago.
Before Queens.
And that it was like, okay, you're going to have this super successful haunted house in Queens, and then you will pay for it later. And now he's paying for it.
A buy now, pay later scheme.
Exactly.
Right. Either the Klarna of Mephistopheles.
It's exactly. So I don't know if he's paying with his own life, if he's agreed to pay with the lives of others, because this is great. So opening night of the house, before everything goes down, Alex is not doing well. He's trying to give this like rousing speech to the actors, but he's just not in it, and he seems so upset. He says we're gonna scare some people tonight. A lot of them are gonna come through here. Of course he means they're gonna come through the house, but I wonder if that means more literally they're gonna come through the walls, through the portal into hell. And he looks so sad and devastated and afraid when he says that. And I think he's like feeling so guilty maybe about the people that are all about to die. I don't think at any point Alex ever thinks his friends are going to die. I don't think he would have done that, or if he wouldn't knowingly do that. But I think he kind of was like, yeah, some people are going to die. I think he knew that.
This tracks better with the Faustus mapping.
Oh, okay.
Because so much of that play is him having made the deal. He makes that incredibly early on. And then the rest of the play is him grappling with what that means, what he is about to lose, what he's already lost, and trying to figure out if maybe he can get out of it.
Right, because you get the reward first and then the payment comes later.
Yes.
This Abaddon is his payment for Queens. Another favorite tidbit I had, a titillating tidbit. They mentioned that at the Queen's house, there was a man playing Lucifer. He was the one who has "Welcome to Lucifer's cat" or whatever it was. You know, he had a big accent, but there was a man playing Lucifer. So Lucifer, Satan, the devil, was literally in Queens. I think that's like symbolically who he made this deal with. And then it turns out that Alex had to fire him because he like had a bad accent, or he was annoying, or he hurt somebody or something. So Alex had to fire Lucifer back in Queens. I think there's some tie there.
In Faustus, Lucifer only shows up in one scene.
Yes, right.
And here it's one scene, but it's in memory.
Yes.
But that tracks.
Yes, exactly. So I like they could have named that character something else. They could have named him, I don't know, Dracula. They could have named him, he could have been a werewolf. He could have been a zombie, but he was Lucifer. I think that's very significant. And so I think now that he's already gotten the reward, he's being led by a supernatural force and literally can't leave the house and can't stop the house from going forward and being open. And that's why he sort of lies to Mac in this really horrible way about I'm sick and dying, to manipulate him and his friends to stay there so that he can run the house. I think that's what's going on.
Wow. Okay. So a couple of things kind of popcorning off of that.
Sure.
The first is, we've talked about this before, Dr. Faustus is discussed usually as sort of a suicide play, where he's signing his soul away. He knows what that could mean and what could happen. So he's at a point of desperation where he's willing to kind of throw it all away, possibly for all of eternity. I'm thinking of the way Alex died. Mm-hmm. Do you think there's a possibility that he hanged himself?
Versus like the house made him hang himself?
Yes.
I think so. I think he sort of realized, oh, this was too much. This was too far. This was not worth it. Too many people are dying. This is it. I got to go.
But also in the same way, Faustus tries to get out of it and try to bargain his way out before he's literally dragged to hell
into the wall.
By demons.
I mean, that could be it too.
Maybe this is kind of a loophole of like, well, if I die by another means, maybe I don't get dragged down to hell. I don't know. Or maybe it's the guilt, like you said. I think that works better.
Yeah, because Alec, right before he's giving that speech, right before opening night, before he says a lot of people are going to come through here, he's remembering Queens, and he says it was her biggest night ever, and he says something about Sarah, and then he's kind of smiling to himself, like remembering this great memory. Sort of like, it's a great moment of humanity for him, because so much of him is him kind of being a pushy asshole throughout the whole movie. Of course, if there's a supernatural force, you understand why. But I liked that moment of humanity. I think that gives me a clue into, I think it is more of a guilt thing, why that happens at the end, versus him just being, continuing to let it happen, or knowing he can't do anything about it, but he feels so guilty, so he doesn't deserve to live. I think it's something like that.
The other one, just that popcorned off of what you're saying, if we're mapping our traditional Elizabethan theater onto horror movies, the way Paul comes back and he's just this kind of ragdoll of his former self who's just still in this uncomfortable reminder of what they did and what it has cost. He's the Ghost of Banquo.
Okay. Yeah, we go into Macbeth. That's cool. I like that
Because
a
he's
lot.
this friend. He's this secondary figure.
He's the first casualty of this guy's sins.
He's also the one chronicling it. He's the one guaranteeing them a future in the same way Banquo has his son Fleance.
Well, that's great.
So
I love that.
the footage is sort of his Fleance.
That's
But the
pretty
way
cool.
he comes back, that's kind of the Ghost of Banquo scene, because it makes everyone so uncomfortable with this just shell of the guy who's there as this guilty reminder.
I think that's great. I love that. I did, again, looking into the sequels, I tried to see if I thought, well, maybe it's because like then your next question is, okay, if he made this deal, how and why? How did this happen? And I was trying, and like the lore of the hotel itself seems so important. I was trying to see if maybe Alex is related to, the Tully guy who first owned the hotel and all that. I really couldn't find any direct connections to Alex and the lore of the hotel itself. What I found in looking through and learning about the other movies, without trying to spoil myself too much, is that the ghost or spirit of the original owner, I think like Andrew Tully or whatever his name is, his goal is just to keep bringing people into the house to feed more souls to this hell portal. And he does this. He uses living people to do this. So I think it was just Alex and Sarah and the crew were just there. And that was like convenient for him. I don't think there's a direct specific Alex connection to the Tully lore of the house.
Okay, cool.
I think he made a deal with the devil, and the devil said, hey, this is a great spot right here. This helps me out, and I get more souls through. The closest portal to you is an Abaddon. I don't fucking know.
So the Tully,
I think it was more like that.
The Tully guy is Mephistopheles.
Yes, pretty much. Yeah, I think that's what it's got to be.
And there's just a revolving door of the latest victims who he's bought and sold.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's the only way it can make sense of this, because there are other horror movies where Alex would tell Mac that he made a deal with the devil, but this is not that kind of movie. It's too grounded. It's too normal. Like
it's weaponizing abstraction.
Yeah.
It's not giving you answers.
Yeah, right. So I think it was something about he's dying and that's how he gets everybody to stay. So that's sort of my thought. That's my theory. But if you guys have other theories, I would love to hear them. If you've seen the sequels and you know more and have more lore and explanation to understand this part of the story specifically, again, the main question is, why can't they leave the house? I would love to hear it. This has been fun.
I'm so bamboozled. The first time ever I haven't had notes for an episode, and it's a Faustus discussion.
I can't believe you didn't talk about Faustus in your discussion. Because at the beginning of the movie, one of the documentary guys says, "Oh, it's supposed to be this portal to hell," and Andrew Tully was a modern day Dante. Like, why didn't you do that? And I'm so glad that I got to do that.
I haven't done a Faustus episode in a minute, but of course, those are some of our most beloved. So you can check all of those out in the back catalog.
Yeah, like Longlegs. Hello,
Longlegs. The Shining, the Substance. We've done a bunch of them. We did one about Beau is Afraid in the realm of Frankenstein.
Right, that
Beau
was
is Afraid of becoming Frankenstein.
Yeah, that was fun.
We've done a lot of fun Elizabethan, old-timey literature mapping.
We have. And of course, if you hadn't checked out part 1 of this discussion, which is Cam's Big Theory, you can go check it out. It's the one we posted yesterday, so you'll find it. It's right there.
That is the horror of stillness in Hell House LLC.
Yeah, that one was real fun too. So cool. Well, thank you all so much for listening. Thank you for joining us for Summerween. We've got a lot more horror coming your way this summer, so please look forward to that. We'll put all these in a playlist for you on YouTube so you can find them easily.
There already is a horror playlist.
Oh, that's true. There is. We got a whole horror thing. Yeah. So anyway.
And there's even more horror. Where?
Oh, on our Patreon. That's right. We've got a Patreon, folks. This is our separate section for our special fans. It is $2 a month for that low price. You can support the show, of course, but more importantly, get 2 bonus episodes per month, and of course, access to the whole back catalog of bonus episodes we've been putting out for years now.
Dozens and dozens. Lots of horror in there.
Yeah, and lots of other things too if you don't just want horror. We talk about all kinds of things on this show if you didn't know. So yeah, thank you for supporting our Patreon. It's in the link in this description for you all. And of course, if you want to support the show in an even better way, you can buy Cam's latest book. It is Lemon Tarts in Space. It's not a horror book, but it's kind of scary and fun and goofy and freaky in its own way. It's basically Alien meets Monty Python. It is a light sci-fi dark comedy. It's a delightful ride through space. You can read it as a regular novel, or you can listen to the audio drama, which is really a delightful experience. So thank you all so much for supporting. Let us know what you think of this episode and this discussion, and we'll catch you here in just a few days with another brand new episode.